All right, so this is on page 6. And this is really a continuation of just following the distributive property. So you'll see a little acronym that we're going to use here in the second section, but really all of them will follow the same pattern. So when you distribute, as you know, you take what's on the outside and you multiply what's on the inside of the next set of parentheses. It just so happens that you have a binomial times a binomial. So that means you're going to just have to distribute twice. So first we're going to take the 5r, distribute that to the 2r by multiplying. So you're going to get 10r squared. Okay. Then you're going to take the 5r, you're going to distribute it to the 3. So you get 15r. So we finished taking the first term in that binomial and multiplying it. So now we're going to take the -1 and do the same thing. So now we'll start with the -1, do the same thing, multiply it by the 2r, and that's going to give you -2r. And then -1 times 3 will give you -3. So after you do all the multiplication, then obviously you combine the terms that are alike together. Most of the time it's just the middle terms that are like terms. So you'll obviously again put it in standard form. So 10r squared plus 13r minus 3. And that's all you do. Okay, so it's really just following the distributive property. Number 20, same process. Take your 5r, multiply it by both. So that's going to give you 25r squared. Okay. Take the 5r multiplied by the 2, you're going to get 10r. And then you just start with your next number. Take the -5 multiplied by the 5r, you get minus 25r. And the -5 multiplied by 2, you get the minus 10. Okay, combine your middle terms together. So you have 25r squared minus 15r minus 10. Okay. So 21, 22, and really the other, there's another method called the box method. If you want to look that up, that's fine. But really, all you're doing is distributing in a box versus in parentheses. Okay, so basically I just go over distributive property. FOIL just simply means first, outer, inner, last terms, which is exactly what we did in the 2 examples above. So if you want to remember that acronym, you can. Okay, it just gives you a little, way to remember. First terms, outer terms, inner terms, last term. Okay, so that's exactly the same process that we just did above. Okay, so I'm going to have you do 21 and 22. Okay, follow the same process I did with the 2 above it, and then we'll check your answer in a second. So check your answers, see if you have the same thing. Okay, it's just multiplying and distributing. Okay, combining the like terms. All right, so we're going to move on to 25 and 26. So the only difference with 25 and 26, you're just multiplying a binomial times a trinomial. So that means you're going to have to take this x and you're going to have to multiply it by all 3. So we don't have an acronym for this. Okay, so really you're just taking the x term first, multiplying it by all 3, then you'll take the -1, multiply it by all 3, and then combine the like terms together. So x times 3x to the second will give you 3x to the third. X times a -4x will give you -4x squared. And then x times 5 will give you a plus 5x. Okay, then we take the -1, multiply that by all 3 terms. So 3x squared times a -1 is a -3x squared. And I'm going to use the vertical method, so I'm just going to line the like terms up as I go. You can continue to go this way if you like. Doesn't matter if you want to continue to go horizontally. It doesn't really matter. Then I'm going to multiply the negative 1 times the negative 4x. So that's going to give me a positive 4x. And then the negative 1 times the 5, that's going to give me a negative 5. So now I already have the like terms underneath one another, and then I can just go ahead and bring down the 3x to the third minus the 7x to the second. And again, you do not add the exponents, you're only adding or subtracting the coefficients, plus the 9x minus 5. All right, so we'll do one more of these. So in number 26, we're taking the 4r and distribute it to all three. So that'll give me 16r to the third plus 16r squared plus 20r. And then I'll take the negative 3, multiply by all three. So that'll give me negative 12r squared minus 12r minus 15. So I'll have 16r to the third plus 4r squared plus 8r minus 15. Any questions so far on that? All is just distributing. Okay, using the distributive property. All right, so let's move on to page 7. So this is a different type of factoring today. So what's going to happen on page 7 is, notice how when we did the top of this page here, and let me just erase this. When we did the top of this page, we had a binomial times a binomial, and we ended up with an answer that was a trinomial. So now what they're giving you is the trinomial, and now you have to work in reverse order and put it into what we call factoring, where what were the two binomials before we came up with this answer. So you're working backwards. Okay, so all of these will have like two different binomials, but it should equal to the trinomial if you actually multiply it out. So there's a little clip I'm going to show you on YouTube of what we're going to do. The method is called the X method, of how we're going to actually do that, and then I'll go through the process with you. Okay, but I want you to look at the introduction first. All right, so let's start with question number 35. So now that you have a little short intro of what the X method looks like. So from the video, again, we know that this is your A term, this is the B term, and this is the C term. Okay, so the squared term is always A, the middle term is always B, and the constant is always C. So when you make your X, okay, we should know what goes at the top. The A times C term will go here. The B term will go here at the bottom. Okay, your factors that you get, they will go on the side. So I'm just going to call them F1 and F2. So those are your factors. Then you take those factors and you divide it by the A term. So that's what the X looks like. Okay, that's what it actually looks like, where all your numbers are going to go. So let's actually take the numbers that are here, and we're going to place them in their proper places based on what I have written here. So I'm going to just erase this, but you don't need to erase it because you need to have it so you'll know where the numbers are going. So first thing we're going to do is multiply the A and the C term together. So can someone multiply negative 24 times 5? Negative what? Okay. And then our B term goes at the bottom, which is negative 26. Okay. Now, that can be very difficult to do if you have to list like all the factors of what times what can give you negative 120. So there's a way that your calculator can help you with that. So if everyone would go to page 4 in your packet, there are a set of directions. Okay. So right here on page 4, there are some directions that will help you. And this particular direction used 72. They were looking for factors of 72, but I want you to take a look up here first before we actually put in negative 120 so you can see what will happen on your calculator. So once we get this in, and I'm going to walk you through the number that we're going to use, but notice once you get these two things into the y equals and you go to the table, this is what you're going to see. So it gives you all the factors of 72. So like 1 times 72, 2 times 36, 3 times 24. So you don't have to even, figure this out yourself. So it'll give you all the factors, and then over here, it adds the factors for you. So now you can look for that B number in this column right here. So it's going to be very easy for you because you can do it all on the calculator, all right? So you're going to type in not 72, you're going to type in what? Okay, you're going to type in negative 120 divided by x. So hit your y equals key. Okay, I'm just going to clear what I have in here. Okay. So you're going to hit negative 120, divide that by x. Okay, and then when you go down to the second column, it actually tells you on worksheet 4 what to do. Okay, you're going to type x plus alpha key. Now when you hit the alpha key, it says hit trace. Trace is up here. And then this little window pops up. So you just got to hit enter. Okay, because you want it to put in the y1. Now you're going to go to the table, so hit second graph. So you're looking for where you want, what was our middle number again? Our bottom number was what? So there you go, right there. Here's negative 26 right here. It tells you what the two factors are. It's that simple. This is the B column, technically. So you're looking where what times what will give you negative 120, but when you add them together will give you negative 26. So you guys can do that right on the calculator. Makes it so much easier. Okay. All right, so let's go back to our worksheet. Actually, that's not it. All right, let me find my correct worksheet here. Here we go. Okay. Zoe, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter which side you put the negative 30 or the 4. Doesn't matter. Yes.
Does it matter if you order so like
No. It has to be in descending order. Okay. The A term is always the squared term. The B term is always the to the power of 1, and the C term is always the constant. Okay. Yes. This is only for quadratics. So quadratics are only to the square root, to the power of 2. Now, when we get into other exponents, we have to use a different form of factoring. It's called factoring by grouping. Okay, so yeah, this section is very detailed as far as what type of factoring you can do for what type of polynomial. So this only works for when the power is 2. Okay, someone else had a question? Okay. All right. Yes. Doesn't matter, because when you multiply it out, you're going to get the same answer. Right, if you were to fold this out, it's going to be 5p squared. I mean, we use x's. I like to use x's for everything, You don't have to use P's and N's and B's and all of that. You can just keep them all X's. Okay? Yes.
Does it matter which like number you make negative for?
Yes, it matters. It matters which one I make negative because when I add them together, it has to be negative 2. Yes, it matters. You can't put the negative 1 over here because when you add them together, you won't get a negative 2. So yes, it does matter. Okay, that's how you can check. The B number is really like your check number. It has to add up to the bottom number. Yes. And there's no way to do that. Okay, so if you have to use your spiral, you might have to do that. Okay, because this is the process. There's no way to do anything differently. Okay. All right, guys, we're going to do one more of these, and then we're going to do some at the top, okay, that are easier, that you wouldn't even have to do the X method for. Okay. So let's just take a look at number 37, because 37 has some larger numbers that we can put into the calculator to practice again. All right, sorry about that. So for 37, we're going to multiply our A and C terms together. So what is 6 times 25? Okay. And what goes at the bottom? 25. Your B. So think of B as bottom. Okay, that goes, your B term goes at the bottom. Okay, so now we need to know, and some of you may not even need to put this on a calculator. You could actually do this in your head. You already know what times what will give me 150 and add up to 25. If you feel like you can do that, you don't need to use your calculator. Okay, if not, then go to your calculator. Okay, hit your Y equals key. Okay, we're going to put in 150 divided by X. And if you already have this in the second row, you don't have to change that. Okay, once you have it in, you have it in. Okay, and now we're going to go to the table. We're going to hit second graph. Okay, and we're looking for combinations of what times what will give us that. That will also give us 25. And there it is right there. Okay, before it runs away. 10 and 15. Okay, 10 and 15. So you're going to go back to your paper. Doesn't matter which side you write 10 and 15. It doesn't matter. Okay, then I'm going to divide it by my A term. My A term is what number? 6. Okay, then I'm going to reduce these fractions. So 10 over 6 will reduce to what? 5 over 3. And 15 over 6 will reduce to 5 over 2. Okay, so we start from the bottom number. The bottom number is our X. So we're going to have 3X plus 5 and 2X plus 5. And if you wanted to check it, you could always FOIL it out to make sure you get back to 6n squared plus 25n plus 25. Okay, you have a question? Okay. All right, so let's look at the top ones, because I told you really would not have, you can do the X method with these when the coefficient to the squared term is 1, but if you know your multiplication facts, I wouldn't think you would need to do that, because we have x squared plus 6x plus 8. So really, when I multiply A and C together, it gives me 8. So what times what gives you 8? It also equals to 6. 2 and 4. So I wouldn't go through that whole X method and get this answer. Excuse me. That's something that you should be able to do in your head. Okay? Because the A term is 1. It's very easy to do. Same thing for number 30. What times what gives you 14? That equals to 9. 7 and 2. So, you wouldn't need to do all of that. Will it work? Absolutely. But see how much faster it is when that coefficient to the A term is 1. You don't necessarily have to do that. Now, this is different because this is negative 27, so your factors have to be right. So what times what would give you negative 27, but when you add them together will give you a positive 6. So you have to now make sure that you have the negative in the right place and the positive number in the right place. Okay, so if we use 9 and 3, which one has to be negative in order to get a positive 6? Which one has to be negative in order to get a positive 6? The 3. Okay? Because the sum has to add up to a positive 6, but when I multiply them, still it has to be a negative 27. Okay? So let's do another one. So what times what would give me negative 20? So when it's negative like that, you're going to have one negative and one positive, but it equals to 8. 10 and 2, which one has to be positive? 10. Okay, that gives you a positive 8 when you add them together. So that's why I say you don't have to go through the entire x method when the a term is just, the x squared term is a 1. When it's greater than 1, you do need to follow the x method, okay? And guys, there are other methods out there. I mean, you can explore, but I can tell you this x method is the easiest one for factoring a trinomial. All right, so let's look at 33. So what times what will give me a positive 56 when I multiply, but a negative 15 when I add? Negative 7 and negative 8. Correct. So a negative 7 times a negative 8 will give me a positive 56 when I multiply, but when I add them will also give me a negative 15. So that's how you know that your factors are correct. You got to use these two numbers here, your last number and the middle number, to check it out. Okay? All right, so we're going to stop there.